Hello and welcome to the Gooners podcast. Mikey Mike. What's happening?
There's a the wrong kind of football is fucking us tonight. Normally we wouldn't put our podcast secondary to the NFL, but one of our guests tonight is a rabid fan of the almost never win anything New England Patriots. So we're trying to be sensitive to his ass, and of course the game goes into overtime. So we're going to start. We'll invite Nate in when he's ready. I like potting after wins a lot more than after losses, Andy, I have to say.
And I like potting after big wins too. That's a lot of fun. But Mike, we're not alone on this venture today.
No, we are not. Even though if you just look at our faces, you'll only see two, but that's kind of typical. Our first guest, and at the moment our only guest until this game ends,
looks like the guy from Goonies. That's why he's not on camera.
As far as anyone knows, yeah, he's one half, along with our buddy Tom ACL Campton of the WWE Tag Team Champions, the Dossier Brothers. Andy, everyone knows how much you like movies, and you're a movie buff. No one knows that actually, but are you old enough to remember a movie called The Man with Two Brains with Steve Martin? Okay.
No.
All right. In that movie, it's a sci-fi comedy where there's a jar. There's basically a brain surgeon with a jar with a brain in it, and the brain talks to Steve Martin, and they get in this friendship, this relationship. As far as you know, Drew is that brain in the jar kind of situation, isn't it? I mean, we know he exists. We've listened to him. We see him tweeting. But
I'm Facebook friends with him. I've seen social pictures of him.
Mike, you've met me, so really, that's
well, I've met you
on all this.
That was like 6 months ago.
It was a hologram. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I have met you in the flesh, and it was really, really nice flesh.
That wasn't creepy. He put the lotion on his skin.
A nice silky caramel skin. Fine,
By the way, I'm going to be in O'Hanlon's again in April, so I bet you can't.
Are you really? Nice.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Get the lotion ready, Drew.
Yeah, I know.
Welcome back on the pod. So, for those of you who don't know Drew, and that's none of you, you do a little bit of football writing. You write for YouAreMyArsenal.com.
Yeah.
You write for Football Manager Daily.
Yeah.
Get German Football News, which you have the wrong Twitter handle in your Twitter bio.
No, I don't. That's how the Twitter handle and the actual title are two different things. So that's actually the right Twitter handle. Well,
the Twitter handle links directly to some dude named Nuno with no followers. So you might want to add that underscore at the end of it and get it
right. So maybe they changed it. I should probably fix that. Yes, there you go.
And then some Borussia Dortmund fan site that I'm not even going to try to pronounce without hawking up a big loogie. So are you spreading yourself a little bit thin, Drew? I'm worried about you. Are you going to get like a flu or something like that?
No, I'm all right.
I mean, you got your writing immunity is gonna it's gonna be down. We do have a second guest lined up, but we may or may not see him during this podcast. So I'll hold on to the massive introduction I was going to do for him, because he's watching the Pats game. The Rams played today. Did anyone know that?
Let me ask you guys one-word questions or one-word answers, just yes or no. Do you want to see Cranky succeed with the LA Rams, Mike?
Don't care. That's 2 words, but don't care. One way.
Drew.
Neutral.
There you go. All right, let's jump right in, Mike. We saw Arsenal secure a nice home victory over Chelsea. Lots of questions about this team, man, heading into this match. I think a lot of us were afraid of the Liverpool repeat. But as we did against Liverpool first time around and against Spurs, when needed, we can start a game hot and we can make it very comfortable from the start. And there weren't any moments in this match where I thought, oh boy, here we go. I thought we controlled, and from the get-go, Mike, we looked really good.
Yeah, I mean, the home game factor, the big game factor. I mean, yeah, we shit the bed against Liverpool, but honestly, we actually looked not so bad at the beginning of it. So this team can get up for big games as long as they don't get punched in the mouth super early. And the reports of Unai's death, I think, are a little bit exaggerated. He could still put a lineup out there. He went with the back four. chooses Koscielny over Mustafi in the back, which, when I found that out, I broke my phone. I went into spasms, screaming and cursing. And it reminded me after the game of what I said in the very first podcast that we ever did, which is, don't expect me to know a fucking thing about football. That if you're looking for that kind of analysis and you're looking for me to be like right about things, then this is the wrong podcast for you.
Yeah. I mean, the reason we brought Drew on the pod is because he's the biggest Unai out guy we know at this.
That is framed from the start.
Drew,
Yeah.
like, all jokes aside, because I'm sure we're going to get to that later on, this Arsenal team appeared completely disciplined. They showed a togetherness, which we haven't seen enough this season. Why don't you think we're seeing this week in and week out?
I think for me, I think on our most of our best performances this season came with a traditional back four, and this is obviously just my 2 cents, my opinion, and I have no basis in other than just what I've observed in the way we've played. But I think the players have more faith in this system than a 3 at the back system. And I think for me, you played a fair amount when you were growing up. I played to a certain level, like, when and then I coach, you coach, so you know that you can see it in your players. If they have faith in what you're putting them through, what you're doing, what your plan is, they'll perform on the pitch for you.
I love how you're not accusing me at all of playing like that when I was growing up.
Well, I didn't know. I don't know your history.
I've only had Gab Marcotti come on the podcast and discuss how prolific I was on the pitch, but that's okay.
Aw, were you really? That was good to know.
I'm not sure prolific.
I had a ton of pace. I just couldn't finish, which is something my wife can confirm. But
oh, Christ! All right, moving on.
So
I just feel like I think the players responded. I think it's questions that a lot of us have raised before is, you could understand maybe 3 at the back in certain scenarios when we had to do it, but I think a lot of us persisted longer than it should have.
Mm-hmm.
And again, most of our good performances in the 22 unbeaten run came with the traditional back four, so it was good that we reverted back to it. I think it allowed us to do what we did in midfield in terms of bossing the game. I think that has a large part to do with why we won. For me, I think all 3 midfielders performed fantastically. I think they're more comfortable in that role. I think the additional player that's able to press in the midfield 3 helped us out immensely with Guendouzi and Torre, and I think it gave Xhaka that additional protection that he actually needs, because I don't think one is enough. So I just think it was a good performance. I do think there's still some worrying issues that people aren't really talking about. Despite the scoreline and despite the nature of the goals, we still didn't really create that many scoring chances. But it's the fact that we limited the ones on our end. And we played well, we pressed well, and everything was organized. And I think that's what's more important to talk about.
In case you're wondering what's going on with Drew's mic, that is not his microphone. That's actually part of his vocal,
he's part robot.
It's just his normal affect.
Well, as you mentioned, we didn't put a lot on goal, but when we did, holy shit, Mike, they could have gone in. We had a few chances slightly missed, and Koscielny had that one header denied by, that was an absolute worldie of a save. But Lacazette thought, world-class this. Penetrated the back of the net harder than you penetrate the misses on a Wednesday night. Am I right?
That brings back great memories from a long time ago.
It was an incredible goal. The touch to take him away from the defender, the space he created for himself, and then just the shot. It was orgasmic.
Yep. We use that word a lot, but this was no exaggeration in this case. He is world class, and this was an advertisement for why he's world class. He takes what was a pretty shit cross within an otherwise really good game of crosses and shit from Bellerin, and 5 seconds later the biscuit's in the basket. So it's. I love him playing the game. I don't know why he doesn't get more minutes, but he needs to be starting because he adds that element to the game. I don't know that Aubameyang controls the ball like that and puts that shot where he is. He's good at other things, but Locke is amazing at that. Drew, what was your level of ejaculation at that moment?
Cannot be quantified. No, but I think you hit the nail on the head, and it's something that I've mentioned before, considering the amount of Dortmund football I watched, is that Aubameyang gives you he's a certain type of center forward, and he gives you certain qualities that you do want. But in that instance, if you swap the roles, Oba doesn't put that chance away because I don't think he doesn't have the close control and the wherewithal in the box that Lacazette does, and I think that's the difference. Which is why I think you need to be playing both of them. I think you have to find out a way that they both have to.
It doesn't have to be a one versus the other thing.
No. I think because they're two different strikers. I think if they were the same brand of striker, then surely you wouldn't play them both naturally. But they both offer you certain things that the side needs, both of them. And I think that if you could find a way to make it work, I think if that starts ticking for the rest of the year, I think that's our way into top 4 is by getting those two firing on the same cylinder for the rest of the season, because we're not going to out-defend the teams ahead of us over the course of the rest of the season. It's got to be – we have to find our goal-scoring form, and we have to keep that goal-scoring form. And to do that, both of them have to be on the pitch as much as possible.
Yeah, and it just reminds me of that article that was written by somebody when we first signed him that was like, if we're not going to get the best out of Aubameyang if they're both on the pitch. So I know that wasn't the article.
And we'll get to it a little bit later, but as Drew said, there are varying attributes of both player, and there's a reason one gets subbed at the end of the game and the other doesn't. And in my opinion, it's because Aubameyang just is quicker, can close down and press a little bit better, but we'll get to that a little bit later. We had Mike, I want to go to you on this because Captain Koscielny, or excuse me, where did my notes go? Yeah, Captain Koscielny makes it 2-0. I thought it was like, wait.
This show is so spur of the moment and off the cuff that we were just paralyzed by a temporary loss
game as well. So Captain Koscielny makes it 2-0 after heading in a crucial first half goal at a moment in the match where I always think it's crucial. You get 5 minutes before halftime. You're just kind of looking at getting in at the scoreline, and you kick him in the balls when you go down, but I don't know how you describe it, Mike. Was it a handball, a shoulder ball, a chest ball, a headed ball? I mean, we got incredibly lucky. We were also incredibly unlucky. We weren't up 5-0 at half.
And we're going to be lucky to have Nate with us in just about a minute, I think, and he's going to be quite happy.
Koscielny is your favorite Arsenal player of all time. What does this goal mean to you?
He is. I've been anti-overriding and relying on Koscielny this season, but that's for a reason. I do actually quite love the man. I'm not ready to say he's back and he's a new $75 million signing and we should be playing him every 3 days, which is exactly how you end up getting him making massive mistakes. But, yesterday his magical shoulder, and it was a shoulder, not a hand, not a head either. He finally made up for that error against Birmingham that I've been holding on to for the last 8 or 9 years in the League Cup final. Andy, you know how we would always say that he doesn't make a ton of mistakes, but when he does, they're just fucking enormous mistakes.
Yeah.
Well, the same could be said about his goals because I did a little digging in. Dude has scored 25 goals for Arsenal now in 9 seasons, and in those 25 games, we have 22 wins, 2 draws, and 1 loss. And the 1 loss was against Fulham 8 years ago.
Wow.
And I mean, he scored a winning goal for a St. Totteringham's Day last day of the season against West Brom. He scored the winner against Newcastle when we needed a win to finish top 4. He scored against Bayern Munich and AC Milan. He scored the goal in the FA Cup final against Hull, the overhead Galazzo against the mighty Southampton, and the handball goal that was actually a handball goal against Burnley a couple years ago. So, I mean, Koscielny, I was so happy to see him have that game.
Yeah,
yesterday.
He played really well.
I didn't expect it. I would never have called it. It doesn't mean I can't be happy about it. I absolutely loved it. I loved it for him. And, we say this all the time about Rambo, but is Koscielny an Arsenal legend at this point?
It's a good question, and I'll let Drew answer it first, but I want to add another thing on to Drew, or another question on to Drew, and maybe he'll answer it by answering this, but do you think Koscielny is still good enough to be an Arsenal player this season and next?
Okay, well, I don't think he's an Arsenal legend. I think people throw that term around far too easily. I mean, in all fairness, not to take away from what he has accomplished with the club. He's been a rock for us for any number of years. I don't think he's a legend. You think legend, you think
Henry.
Bergkamp, Henry, that level. Players that won things while being one of the main reasons why we're winning things, not just the fact that in the side that won. In terms of if he's good enough or not, I think that. I think Mikey brought up a good point. I don't think he should be playing every 3 days. He'll just break down completely and fall apart. But I do think if you can rotate your back four. If you give him league matches where you play like Mustafi and Europa League and the cup matches, then if you do that and if you use him sparingly, I think he can give you the rest of the season. But as I said on Tom's show earlier today, the question then becomes, what do you do in the summer? Presumably we're going to want to keep him at least as a depth option next year, but I think this is where the club has to go out and upgrade on it. Realistically, if you're trying to build something, then unfortunately for Koscielny, he's been a great servant, but I don't think he gets to be a key part of that rebuild.
Can I have to think about how much his
legacy when you're done, Mike?
His contract. I mean, the last thing I think we need to be doing is handing out another $70,000 a week contract or pound a week contract like we did to Per Mertesacker in his final year. I mean, that was sentimentality, recovering from a major injury and coming back, but there was just no use. I mean, we got maybe 2 or 3 games out of him, and it was limited, and that money could have gone elsewhere. I would hate to see the same thing happen to Koscielny, but is he a free agent in the summer, or is he still under contract?
No, I think he's still under contract.
So it's not like we really can do anything about it.
But he's worn our captain armband for a couple of years, and the reason I don't think he is in that conversation of being a true great at Arsenal is because he's never lifted a major trophy as our captain. I mean, he's given us a great tenure, and I think he will ultimately, he could end his career in the MLS. I think with his injuries, Mike, he's the type of player, and this is a testament to the guy, he's the type of player who I could see hang up his boots and immediately become part of our coaching staff.
And that's what you want, though, isn't it? You've seen that around other clubs. Gattuso,
exactly.
became a club, Maldini. Yep. That's what you want. So.
And so, if that's what he does, if he truly if he does retire and then he either instantly becomes part of our club or returns, then I think the conversation switches, because you look at how many years he's given us. You look at He's played through injury. He has been on a World Cup squad. He is a very good defender back in when he's on. And so, if he were to hang up the boots and become an Arsenal coach immediately, then for me, he steps up in his legacy. But I'm in the same ballpark as Drew. I feel like this summer it makes it really hard because you don't want to. He hasn't shown us enough. But who would you rather ship? Do you rather ship Koscielny or Mustafi? Because you don't want to ship both of them, because I don't think we're going to bring in 2 new defenders.
If I had to choose between the 2, I would ship Koscielny, sadly, because of the difference in age and what we have left to offer. But it's a tough one with him because he's so likable, lovable. He really has been with us for a while, but he does score big goals, and that's my point. It's just like when he scores, when you score, that the game's in the bag pretty much.
I mean, look at we joked a couple weeks ago about Sergio Ramos and the games that he scores in, right? And you just listed off all the Koscielnys. It's pretty impressive.
Look at the smile on that guy.
Right?
Welcome to the podcast, Nate Smith.
Thank you.
A happy man, and sure he just ripped off his Patriots jersey and put on Arsenal gear. So my intro, which I normally do at the beginning, but breaking his podcast duck, very much like Drew, a prolific writer of content about football for the site youaremyarsenal.com and Ronnie Dog Football, right?
That's right.
And also that same you weren't here, but some German website that I can't pronounce without spitting.
Ekte Liebe.
I don't know what the obsession is over that, but he's also sent out about 27,000 tweets, which is second worldwide only to some guy named Drew Thompson. Welcome to the pod.
Giving it to Drew tonight.
I don't know why. Well, what is this?
I mean,
because he cheated on us with Tom earlier today. That's why.
Hey, but I got a shout out on that show. I heard. I haven't listened to it yet, but
yeah, you got a shout out for how much shit you used to give Tom for his ACL injury.
I still give him shit about it. Used to. I was doing it yesterday.
So Tom or Nate, I'm sorry. You wrote an article recently, and we're going to talk about it after we're done recapping the Chelsea game, which we're just we've gotten right into the middle of. But I read the article. I said, Drew, you know this guy? I gotta have him on. I said I'll agree to whatever wage packet he wants, but you never asked for anything, so I got really fortunate there. Anything you want to say about the NFL though before we go forward? Are you pleased?
Well, I'm just kind of happy that my team is gonna give all the Gunners an opportunity to see Kroenke lose, which I think is what they all want. So I don't think nobody really likes the Patriots either. So it's kind of a
Arsenal fans versus Americans in here. Like it's going to be.
That's right.
It's going to be a fun Super Bowl. But anyway, get back to Arsenal. We were just talking about Koscielny, his status in Arsenal as being a scorer of amazingly important goals, not a tremendous amount of them. So. We all pretty much agreed. Maybe not legendary status, but he's good. He's good. He's been good.
I agree.
So what's next?
We'll go to Nate on this one because we were going to go to him before he just showed up. So this is great timing. So Emery was booed for subbing Lacazette off. Lacazette's only played one full match in 14 appearances for us. I don't know how much his clause in his contract for playing a full 90 is, but it's got to be a lot of money. But
I think there's something to that, actually.
Jokes aside, I think if you're going to make a sub, he's the right person when you look at our attackers. But why do you think why are fans booing these decisions? I mean, there seems to be this arson out, arson in vibe with Uday. I mean, the guy can't do anything right. but is it right for us to be booing? And do you think it's the right call to take him off and not Aubameyang?
I don't think we're right to be booing. I think in that situation we had to pull off a striker. And I think with him, it goes back pretty much since he joined the team. And I think he's honestly, it's been a fitness concern for him. I remember reading something on, I think it was Get French Football News or something where, he wasn't the best natural athlete. When he was coming through the Lyon Academy, it was something about his, VO2 max, getting into fitness tests that they do. But he's just not, I just think that he's just one of those guys that kind of uses it all up. In an hour as opposed to going 90 minutes. I mean, you see that with Tottenham too. Son, he's the same way. He runs his ass off for an hour and then he's taken off. And who's the guy on Liverpool that always getting subbed off after an hour too? I forget, but I think honestly it's just a matter of
John Aldridge.
What?
John Barnes. I mean, sorry.
So yeah, I think and when we switch up to go to more midfielders and kind of try to control Chelsea's attack a little bit, because at that point we were starting to get overrun, especially in the midfield. While Aubameyang doesn't do as much defensively as Lacazette, I feel like he's better for when we switch to playing more direct later on. We're not going to have that sustained possession. We're going to do more counterattacks. He kind of fits that better because he's got the top end pace and he gets in behind the line easier. So. I don't agree with booing him being taken off. I wouldn't mind seeing him play a full 90. I'm not opposed to it, but
And Mike Hernandez in the chat mentions if Aubameyang was the one who was always getting pulled off after 70th minute, people considering he's the joint highest scorer in the league right now, I think would the fans complain about that as well? I mean, you can't win.
Oh, I'm sure they would.
yeah, they're always going to find something. There's always the agenda, boys. Speaking of the agenda, Mike, Ramsey has another stellar performance, and I need to ask it. With a guy who's just signed a pre-contract to Juventus, why is he starting over Ozil in these types of matches?
Well, look, I also had a Stella performance on Saturday. I performed a bunch of Stella into my mouth at the pub, but I'm not gonna overanalyze the Ramsey Ozil thing because number one, my new stance on Aaron Ramsey, which goes completely against what I've always said in the past. Surprise, surprise. He belongs to Juve now, and I'm ready to work him into the ground until he either breaks or starts to show a sign that his mind isn't here anymore. And and get the most out of them. And I said the opposite about the Ox. I said the opposite about Alexis. I said the opposite about Ramsey before the contract situation was resolved. And, for now, it seems like he is giving 100%. We're getting value out of him on the pitch. So as for Ozil, I want to remain friends with Drew. so if I ever was, so I'm not going into that.
Drew, my thought on the Ramsey versus Ozil is that maybe this was just too big of a match to bring Ozil back, who has been nursing this injury, and that's probably why he wasn't given a start.
You see, I look at your face and I don't know if you even believe what you're saying. That's the problem.
I'm trying to believe it.
So first there's that. Let's just get that out of the way.
I look at this face all the time and I don't believe what he said.
We can get that out right now, but my 2 cents, honestly, I think to his credit, I think if you look at what he's doing on Instagram, that he's showing how hard he's working, that he's fit. You'd have to assume that he is in fact fit. Obviously, we don't know. I'm not in Emery. Neither of us are. None of us are in the coaching staff. We don't know what's going on, but we can only
on this pod.
Yeah, we've been. That's why you didn't have.
Jesus. So for me, I just feel like, and I think David Ornstein said it best. It's heavily rumored. It's been suggested that Unai has told Ozil needs to go somewhere else. And I think if that's the case, then you have your answer. And again, I've always dispelled this notion that Ozil can't play in a pressing system that's a bunch of hogwash. He's done it before, multiple times, in multiple different teams. Everyone in the Bundesliga presses. When he was at Werder Bremen, all they did was press, and all they did was counterattack, and he was, running full 90 minutes constantly, and he was doing just fine. Real Madrid, same thing. So
he was 22.
I don't think that necessarily matters per se.
And he did it more for 60 minutes at Madrid, but still, I mean, he was
true enough. But I just feel like even if
but
fair point. That even if you want to only give him 60 minutes because he can't press for 90, it's no different than Lacazette, is it not?
Yeah,
Lacazette clearly cannot press for 90 minutes, and that's okay. He gives you full out 60, 65 minutes. You remove him from somebody who replaces him, gives you the energy back, and you're okay. So you could say in theory that Ozil can provide the same thing. However, again, it's clear that maybe Tennis doesn't feel ready to do that. And then, as much as I hate it, you kind of have to look at performances like yesterday and see that clearly it worked without Ozil. But there's also performances this season where it shows that it doesn't work without him, particularly in terms of how much chances we created. Like I said before, what?
We are now broadcasting our podcast over AM radio.
60% of what you're saying.
Really? I give up.
No.
You can guess what I had to say.
Cards? Like, what are you doing?
No. My headset is completely fucked, so I just need a new one.
But what you're saying is of such value that I think our listeners and users will overlook the technical difficulties. That, and if they haven't, then they're not listening to me say this right now anyway because they've already turned us up.
Fair enough.
So, to Drew's point, if we're going to have Lacazette and Ozil work as hard as they can for 60 minutes, Mike, then we're just going to have what happened Saturday happen again, which I'm okay with. We're winning the match, and we just sub on 11 central defensive midfielders to see out the rest of the game. Did you ever think you would see that combo of players playing together this season? Unreal. I love it.
Maybe not at the beginning, but after some of the lineups we had this year, nothing would surprise me. So,
Yeah, I mean, and we'll go and sign 8 more and throw them on the pitch for the next game. But whatever works. We won.
That's right. I should mention that I'm kind of in Andrew's camp on this one about Ozil. I think we still could play our best football with him on the pitch with us.
Mike,
maybe that's crazy, but
that shows a fundamental misunderstanding for my point on Mesut Ozil. It's not that. No, I don't hate him.
Hear you say it again.
I tweeted something at the beginning of this year that said I'm Team Ozil after the World Cup. So look, I don't hate him, and I think that he has the potential to be an amazing player for us. It's the drama off the pitch that I'm ready to be done with. It's this, and I'm not even placing all the blame on him because Unai Emery certainly has a lot to do with that. I'm just ready to be over it one way or the other. Shit or get off the pot, and I wouldn't mind if he was sold to move on to the next stage. I didn't say I didn't think he was a good player.
Did you guys know he makes £350,000 a week?
I've never heard that before.
Either have I. That's why it's so surprising to me.
We have a great user question on that topic, actually. But no, I mean that's news to me.
All right, so let's do a quick fire round of who your man of the match was. Drew.
Well, it depends if you can hear me or not. That's the first problem.
Well, you gotta hurry up.
Stay there. Stay right there. Oh!
My man of the match is Koscielny.
I hear no difference. You might have been making that up. It sounded the same to me.
Yeah, exactly. No, I would go with Koscielny. That would be my vote.
Yeah, it's a pretty good one.
I mean,
You guys go ahead. Pick yours. I have to think of a contrarian opinion now since he took mine.
No, I would echo too. I'm gonna say Koscielny. I thought he all around had a great match.
Yeah, Koscielny in a landslide. I give honorable mention maybe to Lacazette for his first 70 minutes, and then second honorable mention to the guy who posted that disgusting video that was supposedly Bellerin's ACL snapping. Which
that was awful.
By the way, I have it on good authority from someone I know who is who had apparently an ACL injury.
Mike, would you say you're a fan of this guy?
When he was 17 years old, he has tons of fans that apparently that was not his ACL in the video, and some doctor, a former NFL team doctor, posted that just what he saw in the video looked more like a quad tendon break than an ACL. Which, good news, bad news. It's still 9 months out. Maybe it's an LCL or MCL injury, but Nate, first give us your man of the match. It doesn't have to be contrarian. You don't just have to, this new trend of all the millennials that they have to come up with some people born in 1990 like you.
Yeah. I shouldn't have given you that. I think it would be Koscielny, but I have to give an honorable mention to Aubameyang because, I mean, he made, 3 tackles in this game, which is 3 more than he usually makes in a match. So,
and one of
that's
them was
pretty good.
Friggin' beautiful.
Oh, I almost had a heart attack. A slide tackle in the box. You don't want your striker doing that. It was, lucky that it worked, but that could have been. I mean.
So yeah, Koscielny. I mean, just a shocker of a performance in the best possible way. We talked a little bit about Hector. Gutted for Hector, absolutely gutted. Watching him get carted off, I finally had some empathy for you, Andy, because I mean that must have been what you felt when your starting fantasy running back got injured, and then you used that as an excuse for losing by 300 points to me in the playoffs.
Hey, 300, Mike.
I believe that was the total, but I don't know.
Full well, if I hadn't given up after leg 1 and I started the right players in leg 2, I would have beat you very marginally.
I don't know. Nobody in our group ever acknowledges that we had a fantasy football season after I won it. So I have to think it might have been 300 points.
You want to know why, guys? Because all season, because you
told them not to.
Because he had Mahomes and he trade raped everyone. He just talked shit the entire time. Hey, Lee Judges, who's never done fantasy football. Why don't I give you a kicker and you give me Mahomes from Kansas City and Tom Brady? That makes sense.
I got Mahomes from Joey Murphy. Anyway, enough of that. So who starts it right back now is the obvious question. There's a question that was asked by, I believe, Mike Hernandez, but I mean, doesn't take a Mike Hernandez to ask that kind of question at this particular juncture. The obvious choices, Nate, are going to be Mainsley, Jenkinson, Lichtenstein, Bergstein, Mustafi, and of course Emery's first choice, probably more likely than not, Granit Xhaka.
Well, see, I would say Emery would choose Xhaka, but he is a lefty. I think that's probably the only thing that's going to keep him from doing it.
Yeah, but it's in vogue now, having left-footed, right-sided players.
That's true. Yeah, he could really cut in off the wing, and he's got that. Yeah, you're right. No, maybe
no one would ever expect that. That's going to be our advantage.
I think it's got to be Ainsley, but it's not ideal in my opinion because I think it kind of hurts us in 2 ways. One, I mean, obviously, people like to talk about Hector's defending. I don't think he's as good a defender as Hector is. But I think it also is going to hurt his development further forward. I think he was starting to make progress, kind of showing up more as a midfielder. And I think that's really where he's going to end up is as some sort of a hybrid wing, central midfielder. And, the longer he has to cover at the back, the less he's going to have time to really, really kind of take a role and make it his own and show enough there where the team's going to look at it and say, okay, we don't have to spend $50 million here to get another central midfielder in because we have him, and he, in a couple of years' time, he could legitimately be one of the better box-to-box players in the Premier League. So,
is he going to end up having a similar fate to Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain in your mind? As far as his time at Arsenal ends up?
No, because he won't be mismanaged like Ox was.
Well, you got to look at it though. I mean, it wasn't.
By the way, Quinton.
Career, but
sorry, Nate. Quinton Winfield in the chat said the exact same thing. I didn't even see that yet. It is my concern. Sorry, I jumped all over you, Nate.
That's okay. I think Ox was mismanaged more because of the situation than because that's specifically what Wenger wanted to do with him, though. You know what I mean? I think part of that going to the three at the back last year, he kind of wanted that extra attacking presence there, playing wing back. So by the time he left, we were still in three at the back, and he was still kind of getting that time as more of a wing back. And it really, I mean, he was good there for us, pretty good, but I think it was a bit of a necessity because we had, like this year, we had a run of injuries at left back, and I guess Wenger kind of liked Monreal in a back three. So
you just kind of see him as that quintessential utility man, which against his preference, but team player wants to be able to help out wherever he can. But ultimately, he's going to end up getting kind of stereotyped as the plug him in wherever you have a shortfall, and instead of really being given an extended run. I think if we were to see an injury to someone like maybe Guendouzi, then that would be the opportunity to see whether he has the chops for the position that he likes. But for now, I think you're right. Lichtsteiner's been awful the last few times he's been in there. So
it's a shame too, because I was expecting him to actually be pretty decent.
I was too, despite everyone else telling me he wasn't going to be. But so, hey, Drew.
Mike, just real quick, it's not coincidence that when Jenkinson's been on the pitch, we've only conceded 2 goals. Just saying.
Was it for 45 minutes that he's been on the pitch?
No, but just saying, not coincidence. The corporal.
I'd love to see a Koscielny type resurgence from Jenkinson. Look, I mean, it would be fine as long as we don't sign him to a contract extension when it happens.
Wouldn't a Koscielny style resurgence from Jenkinson involve him actually being good like Koscielny once was?
No, I'm just saying the resurgence is good. Yeah, that's true. Maybe it'll just be a surgence instead of a resurgence.
Crap to lovable without ever being good in between, and that's kind of an achievement all by itself.
That's because
in my opinion,
that's the other reason why. If you didn't have that picture on the bedspread, everyone would be like, what the fuck is this guy doing?
He's the Colney cockroach. He's never going to leave.
Right. Yeah.
Have you ever seen Tom's bedspread? Because from his kid's bed, because he still has that. Drew, name some German kids we can buy so that we don't have to worry about any of these people doing right back. God. I heard something on the podcast earlier today about Kevin Mbabu. And I got really excited because I was imagining our spine being like Mbabu, Mbappe, and Mbappity Boopity. Like a whole Mbop team. Like Hansen could be our back.
Kevin Mbappe, Mbupu? Is that his name? It's Kylian Mbappe.
There's a guy named Kevin Mbabu.
Mbabu. He's at Young Boys in Switzerland. He's Swiss.
That's the other thing.
Never mind then. Never mind.
Yeah, never mind. Sorry. Some young right backs. I mean, the one that would have stood out that you could argue that we could have afforded considering his release clause was Pavard from Stuttgart, but he's gone to Bayern Munich, so that's kind of out the window.
Yeah, why did they get smart again?
Right? I'm really not a fan, to be honest. I'd rather go back to being fucking absolutely retarded. But I don't know. For me, I don't think we need to buy anybody, if you want my honest opinion. I think if you look at, there's certain other young players who have shown tactical flexibility where they can come in and do a role in certain positions and still develop. If you want to think of a German example, is Benjamin Henrichs, at Bayer Leverkusen. He came through as a winger at Bayer. They transformed him into a right wing back and a right back. That's how he got his move to Monaco. It didn't ruin his development as a player. It just shifted his development from one position to another. Doesn't necessarily mean I think that, Maitland-Niles deserves to be a right back, but if he can do a job for a couple months, and then we reassess in the summer, then give him until the summer. And then if you feel like, maybe he didn't do it well enough, then you want to sign him for the summer. Then that's fine.
No,
go on.
I've strongly advocated not trying to patch holes, even injury holes in January. I mean, it's going to happen. We'll drop games. We're not going any lower than 6th. It's kind of what everybody, just don't make short-term decisions that screw up our long-term. That's what we've been doing for the last 4 years.
And not just that, don't make short-term decisions in the summer market, because if you know Bellerin's coming back at a certain date, you don't want to go out and buy a starting grade right back, because then you potentially risk the long-term development effect of Bellerin. I think
a younger version of Lichtsteiner, though, to continue to push Bellerin wouldn't be the end of the world.
It wouldn't be the end of the world, no, but then you potentially come up with squad issues, potentially. That's why I think you just give him until the summer, see how he does. For fuck's sake, please don't play Lichtsteiner. I don't want him in the 11. I'm going to be furious if I see it. I'd rather play Xhaka there, for God's sakes. Like,
I wouldn't go that far.
I absolutely would. But I think that's and if it shows that he can't do it, then you give Jenko a run. He was bad against Blackpool. He's actually a right back, and maybe he can earn the paycheck for once in his Arsenal career. Maybe you give that route, but I don't think this is something we should be solving this month. And if we do, loan only. If we want to loan anybody, it's a right back right now. It shouldn't be a center midfielder. You want to loan anybody right now, then you loan a right back, and then you worry about the rest in the summer. So.
Yeah, just saying. The last time Jenkinson played against Manchester United, I believe the score was 8-2. I think it was. I
believe you're correct.
I don't remember that. Maybe because I turned it off when it was 5-2. But
you were just a young pup at the time.
I wish.
Before we go to the next topic, I just want to give a shout out to the chat room. It's a late night, so we appreciate the Americans joining in. Pablo, Quinton, good old Mike Hernandez, Sebi in the chat. Rob is in the chat. Some names that I recognize, a lot more than some names that I don't, which is always good to see new people in the chat. Quinton Whitfield says, match whatever BVB pay for Hakimi. I'm going to assume that both of you or one of you knows what that means.
It means we're gonna have to shell out about £75 million for him.
Yeah, well,
that means because BVB always pays £75 million.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, no, yeah, Dortmund only have him on loan. If they want him back, they have to shell out £75 million to Real Madrid, and he has a future there because Carvajal's not getting any younger. So,
and he's gotten a chance to play for Dortmund, and that's kind of when Real realize they have good players is when they go off and they play well for somebody else.
Yep.
And they either have to exercise a buyback clause or just take him back on loan. But I mean, he'll probably end up at Madrid next year and either starting or in the squad. But I don't think we're going to get a shot at him. He's too good.
I agree.
Too expensive.
Alrighty, then
Good
we
thought,
we have to address the elephant in the room here, and this is just the biggest and the latest in a long line of Arsenal controversies to just tear Twitter apart. We've got friendships that are in jeopardy, mateships are exploding, violence is being threatened. Olivier Giroud, we got to talk about this because, I'm not here to debate the obvious thing about whether you should tell other people how to feel about something or whether to cheer, to boo, or anything like that. Obviously, you don't tell people what to do unless you're paying them or like you host a podcast with them or something. Quick survey of the room here, though. And I'm going to go first because then I get to hear about how much you guys agree with me. And if I go last, I don't get to hear that. I love Olivier Giroud. I'm a huge fan. I miss him AF. I crave him. I mean, I would bang, I think is the saying. But if I was at the Emirates, I would have clapped him pregame warmly. I would have clapped him when he came on as a sub. And, when they announce his name and he runs on the pitch and kind of, holds his arm up, I would have clapped him. And then clapped him at the end of the game when he comes, and acknowledges the crowd. But to sing his name during the game when he comes in, to me, is just ludicrous. It's diabolical. And, I mean, he's trying to score against us and cost us the game. That's his job. You don't sing in
Didn't
praise
look like
of
he
him.
was trying all that hard, though.
Well, I mean, he's, maybe he's a plant. But just in general, a couple of fellow Gooners at the pub I was watching the game at in Arlington was, started singing his name when he came in. And I stabbed them both to death and cut them into like 79 pieces. So
and you get off of it because you're white. So really,
we're going there.
That's why you're still here to see it.
Oh my God. Why didn't your mic act up right when you said that?
Surprise.
Yeah, it's working great now, Andrew.
Surprise.
A couple of when they did that, I just wanted to kill Would they have been cheering if he scores? I mean, at what point is it not appropriate anymore? But Drew, I heard your take earlier when you cheated on us with Tom, and I've actually never heard you agree so much with the stance that Lee Gunner has taken.
I don't want to talk about
it until now.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about
it.
All right, but lay it on us, big boy. Let's hear it.
No, it's simple.
Will have the words later.
I just generally, I'm right with you. I just feel like you can respect him for the good servant he was for the club. Like I said on Tom's show, it's clear that he loves playing for us. It's clear that he loves the club. The fans took to him for one reason or another. Again, you clap him when he's warming up. You clap him when you see him stripping down to come onto the pitch. You clap him when he comes on the pitch. You clap him when the match is over. But during the match, you cheer his name. Like I said on Tom's show, you don't hear Dortmund fans singing Matt Hummels' name when they're playing Bayern. You don't. Ever.
A bit of a different situation there.
It's a little bit of a different situation, sure, but the premise is exactly the same. Okay, so Gladbach fans don't sing Michael Royce's name when he's playing at Gladbach. It's the same thing.
Didn't Dortmund do that for Nuri Sahin this year? More or less? Like, exactly?
Yeah, I would say so, but that's not a rivalry, is it?
Blogger fight.
No.
I think Nuri Sahin playing for Werder Bremen is not Nuri Sahin playing for Schalke.
So no, that's true. But Nuri Sahin wouldn't play for Schalke,
right? And they never would have sold him to Schalke in the first place.
And Giroud wouldn't play for Tottenham either. So
no, but I think you'd have to say that Chelsea is a rival, even if it's not a historic thing. Sure. They're a top 6 rival. Mm-hmm. They're a city rival. We're in direct contention with them for a top 4 place this year. The last thing you should be doing is singing any player, no matter what their history is. And I feel like maybe if Olivier Giroud was playing for Burnley, then maybe I could agree with it a little bit more than if he was playing for Chelsea. But I just
or if it's 4-0 when he comes in and not 2-0, and in the 80th minute or something like that. It's just to me, it's putting player over club. And for a player that's not currently with your club either, it's bad enough when you put player over club with arguments about Ozil and arguments about Alexis Sanchez and all that stuff. Uh-huh. But to put player over club for an ex-player actively playing against you, to me, dubious AF. But Nate,
I agree with both of you that I think it's a little over the top, but part of it obviously is the circumstances. That he left under, obviously it wasn't his choice and he kind of did it. People like to say, he didn't exactly do it for us, but he understood the situation and he took it, even though it wasn't what he wanted to do. And I think the fact that it was 2-0 really helped. I don't think those same fans that were singing his name would have been singing if it was 1-1. I don't think they would have been singing if we were losing, It's,
but these fans have watched Arsenal, and 2-0 is 2-0.
Yeah,
in the 65th, 70th minute is not.
It was I thought it was an inspiring defensive performance that I think it didn't even look like Chelsea were going to get. Sometimes 2-0, it doesn't feel like 2-0, but I feel like that game it felt like we were beating them, and we were beating them good. We weren't generating a lot of chances, but they weren't even coming close.
True.
So, also, when Koscielny
scores, it's a win. So
yeah, that's right.
Probably felt safe at that point.
Bicycle kick off the shoulder, doesn't matter.
No,
do you remember that? Did he get was it 2 years ago he scored on the bike?
Yeah, we were talking about that against Southampton. Massive goal. Andy, where are you on Giroud? I don't even think you've really chimed in that much on in our chat groups about it, so I don't know where you stand.
It's mostly because I don't care.
I have been able to tell that through this debate with your facial expressions, by the way.
Listen, it's appropriate to clap the player before the match. It's appropriate to show him the same love after. But anything during the 90 minutes, if he's not wearing an Arsenal shirt, then he can go fuck himself. Giroud will go down as a loved player amongst every Arsenal fan, but for the 90 minutes he features against us, he should be dog shit.
Okay, well,
isn't that common sense?
As I predicted, everyone agrees. So that's lovely. Now we get to the reason that I just craved to invite Drew and specifically Nate onto the podcast. We have to discuss a man who's been the subject of much scorn, some deserved, some, in my opinion, quite undeserved. We're, of course, talking about Super Bowl NFL team owning given his first interview in like 10 years today, having horrible mustache owning Stan Kroenke. And before I go to you, Nate, because I mean, your opinion has both been expressed very well. What?
Nate, he texted me. I just looked it up on January 12th saying, "I'd love to get that You Are My Arsenal guy, Nate Smith, on to discuss this Kroenke situation." And I was like, I remember him texting me, and then this just hit the light bulb.
I had a lot to drink that night.
After for 8 days.
I had a lot to drink that night. All right, so I hate Stan Kroenke. I don't like him. I think he sucks. I don't like his lack of focus on Arsenal's history, on our fans. I mean, he's really an absentee owner. He doesn't really seem to understand the Arsenal way. He doesn't know when we're playing and thinks the FA Cup is like winning the Super Bowl. So, this splash for cash for once and this cheap-ass owner and get him out narrative, this rage about him being – not willing to spend any of his own money on players, especially, is just, I mean, it's absurd. And I get the dislike, but the complaints are diluted. We got a user question from Elixir Amrin. This is the first time I think I'm ever.
This is.
Yeah, this is the one we've been looking forward to answering, and he watches the games at O'Hanlon. So Drew, you might have encountered this man at one point. I love you for asking the question, but my God, will Kroenke shut up and spend some money now that his team is in the Super Bowl for Alexa, thank you for the user question. Please keep sending them in, but for fuck's sake, this is what kills me about so many Arsenal fans. So Nate, your dossier.
Oh God.
It's called "Why Your Anger at Kroenke is Misplaced," and I encourage you to read it, drink it in. But tell us in your own words, kind of, what your theories are, why he hasn't put any of his own money into the club, and like what the alternative is if he did.
So, well, I'm a big believer in blaming people for the things that they do wrong, but not using people as kind of as a figurehead for you to put all your blame on because you don't really know who to blame or you don't even know that there should be blame placed. It's just that you're mad and you want to take it out on somebody, He's not a good man, in my opinion. He's not a brilliant franchise owner, in my opinion, but the money really has nothing to do with why we are where we are. And so it's really funny how somebody like him is so hated that it has taken cheating, and there's no other word for it, cheating by Manchester City, by PSG, and by others, and made it seem acceptable because our fans would rather our owner cheat than do nothing. And that's really kind of, I don't know, the biggest shame of it all is that people aren't even rightfully outraged about cheating happening because they say, oh, they're skirting the rules, we should do it too. So, but from a practical standpoint, it's just, there's so many, I mean, as you guys know, there's so many different things that kind of govern how a Premier League club can spend their money. And in fact, in the Premier League, there's 3 different rule sets that govern it. There's UEFA's FFP, there's the Premier League's, long-term financial restraints or what have you, and then there's the short-term cost controls. And kind of where all 3 of them meet is kind of what makes it difficult for most people to kind of figure out, and every team situation is unique too. So when they see somebody like City spending all this money or Liverpool all of a sudden spending all this money, they just assume that we should be able to do the same thing because they see that we make about the same amount of money. And there's just so much more to it than that, So I just find it very frustrating that people don't – it's almost like they don't want to know because they're happier blaming
Right, it's this willful ignorance that and – of course, it doesn't help that the guy's American because we've lost Andy. For one thing, people love sometimes to hate on Americans who don't understand football. And don't get me wrong, Stan Kroenke doesn't understand football, not the game, not the politics, not the lifestyle or any of it. But, I mean, it's just the perfect storm for him to just be a target. And my biggest complaint with him, which I'll get to in a minute, is the lack of communication coming from anyone in their camp. But before we get to that, we talked last week on the pod a little bit about why Kroenke can't pull a Man City and just, or shouldn't/can't. You can't just have Walmart a corporate, public entity decide to pay £90 million to have their name on the stadium or on the kit, or put a picture of his $5 billion ranch on the kit and pay himself £80 million.
Yeah.
Even if he wanted to do that, he can't just go into his pockets and say, let's use this money to buy, the Van Dijks, the Mbappes of the world, even if he wanted to do that, right?
Yeah. So what would happen, and say he were to just go ahead and do that, right? UEFA would then look at it and say, okay, what is the real value of this sponsorship? And, Arsenal, next year we're going to have, the kit deal and the stadium deal. They're going to be brand new, and they're going to be up, near the top of, stadium deals and kit deals in the world, because we're just a big club, So if he were to say double what we're going to get next year from the Emirates, right, and named it Walmart Field or something, they would still go in and look at it, and they'd basically assess the real value of that sponsorship. And if it was inflated, they would basically do their calculations for the rules based on the real value, not on the value that he assigned. So even if he was spending all this extra money on the sponsorship, they'd say, right, well, your sponsorship was only worth £80 million. So that's going to be your figure that goes into the calculus,
Now cities, though, and again, the difference is that their sponsor is privately owned, it's government owned, it's oil, it's all that. But they've gotten away with an $80 million a year, or £80 million a year. I'm American, in case anyone didn't realize. £80 million a year naming right, which is like, I think, twice what our new one is, and more than anybody else's. Yes, they are recently champions, and therefore you would expect to be able to command a lot more money. But how have they been able to get away with that?
So I think, well, part of it too is that I think the naming rights is for the entire Etihad campus, right? So it encompasses the training facility and the stadium, and I think they have. It's just a huge complex, so they could be breaking it down like that and saying, okay, so instead of having a specific training ground sponsor, we lump it all together, and that's what it is. But the thing with City being able to spend all this money, though, is because they started so much lower in terms of their sponsorship revenue. Like 10, 15, 20 years ago, they were not nearly the club that Arsenal was in terms of their marketability on a world stage, And so Arsenal has been that way for, since Arsene Wenger's been here, and, they're a big club before that, but really that's kind of on an international stage when they kind of took off in terms of their commercial viability. But City's has been very recent, so they've kind of been able to grow with their revenue growing, as opposed to waiting for that incremental increase over time to happen.
And when they really plugged a lot of money in, like without any kind of commensurate balance to it, it was prior to 2012, 2013, when the
it was like
cost
right in
controls came into
2011.
play. Their timing was perfect. 2008 to 2011, their owner is.
Does anyone know what revenue is gained by shirt sales? The percentage or the dollars?
I don't think they actually get anything from the sale of shirts. I think that, because that all goes to the kit manufacturer, and I think they just get a percentage of, basically they license their brand or their crest.
They probably get so they probably get like a per shirt deal for that, is my guess, right? If Puma says, "Hey, we're going to make one shirt, you're going to get £2." So why
are
not
you doing
just
some competitive analysis right now?
Why not just buy 500 million shirts for the Walmarts across America? Boom. There's your loophole, bitches. I figured it out.
Oh, I thought you were doing some competitive research for some reason. Also, that's why the whole theory of Chelsea will make up Pulisic's transfer fee in American shirt sales right away. That doesn't work that way.
No, even if they are getting a percentage
trade for a shirt, like Nate said, there's got to be a licensing deal. So whether that's a lump sum or if it's a per shirt deal, if it's per shirt deal, we got to get these shirts in every Walmart across every size, millions of them, millions.
If there is, I would say it's very, very marginal, because I'm pretty sure the bulk of what. But I think the bulk of what clubs get is from that signing that kit deal. Basically, like that $60 million a year we're going to get from Adidas. That's kind of our compensation for all the Arsenal shirts. Now I don't know. They might have some deal where they get a very small percentage of each shirt, but I can't imagine that's very significant. You know.
Well, and I want some money back for the freaking cheap quality of this shirt. But
those letters coming off over there?
Oh, the letters came off a long time ago. They just popped off like buttons when I got fatter. Mike Hernandez in the chat asked, will our wage issues go away next year because we have the 7% increase available to us? Not only that, Mike, as my understanding is, but we have 2 new deals that take effect in June. That
and
also
all the wages that we're going to lose.
Yeah.
That's kind of the cumulative effect of all that. I think it'll be much easier in the summer. I think it's really about getting through. I mean, this January is kind of a bottleneck. I've said this on Twitter, actually, kind of in the last week. It's kind of a bottleneck of all of our problems. It's kind of, all of the contract issues we had because, players weren't sure what Wenger was going to do, so they weren't going to commit their futures to the club, when they weren't even sure who was going to be the manager in 2019, 2020. Now that that's been solved, now that we have a different team handling contracts now that we have more, shirt revenue and stadium revenue coming in for next year, I think it's really going to be a lot better, and people are going to kind of wonder why they were so worried this year, because it's just this January is a bad time. We were never planning on spending money this January. I think when Sanlihi gave his interview back, September, when it was announced that he got the promotion, he was saying that he wasn't a big fan of buying anybody on the January market. So, I don't think it was ever
like. No, to that point, it's not like this was a thing that hit the board and the club in November. Like, they've known about this for years. Like, there's financial analysts who are running all these numbers, walking in and out of whoever's office to go, this is where we're placing ourselves. This is what happens when we buy and we sell. So this isn't something, and so, like, to Nate's point, if it was said back then, they knew this was going to happen.
But that's unfortunately, I have to jump in. I'm sorry. That's what drives me absolutely crazy about our fan base is that they just feel like this is some out of the blue, like we're caught with our pants down. Oh shit, what's happening? Like that's not how.
Because they came out and said we have no money for transfer. That's the problem. Is when it's said that way.
But it doesn't matter though. But as you guys said, the club would have known this already. Not at the very least, even if we didn't know this 2 years ago, we certainly knew this in the summer.
And
so
point,
it's not
Mike,
a shock to anybody.
No, to your point, Mike. You just said you don't like, part of the reason you don't like Kroenke is his lack of communication. Yeah, he could come out and release a statement through him or Josh saying, hey, this is the reason why. But we got to keep some cards close to our chest, because in the summer, if we go in for, let's say, Denis Suarez, Barcelona are going to turn around and go, well, hold on a second. You've just acknowledged that you've got shit tons of cash and you're ready to play ball. So we're going to play ball too. So there needs to be
I'm incredible at poker, by the way.
And we're doing a really good job of playing the pauper right now. We're making clubs truly believe we're very poor. I think that's a good plan.
Yeah.
Because we are right now.
Yeah, it's also driving away 50% of our fan base. But
and Nate, you're going to be surprised.
In first place anyway, right?
Yeah. You'll be surprised to hear this, but the only people that listen to this are mine and Mike's mom. So,
so we're not offending anybody.
No,
we're
not.
saying.
We're not. Well,
okay,
we're about
good.
to. We can offend Bob.
Yeah, we're. I've actually met Andy's mom. So how you doing?
Hi, Andy's mom.
How you been, baby? All right. So anyway, we did a show from her bedroom, pretty much.
There you go.
All right. So, my favorite thing is, what the fuck does the Rams being in the Super Bowl have to do with Arsenal?
Nothing.
Really?
Nothing.
I mean,
literally
nothing.
And what does him spending $1.5 billion on a real estate deal, which is what that is? It's not a competitive situation. It's not going to make the Rams any better or worse. I mean,
it's
they're
not
already
going to affect Arsenal. That's the It doesn't.
It is. I mean, people start and saying things that I don't understand, and they certainly also don't understand, which is about the loan he took to get Arsenal. He's leveraging Arsenal. I mean, that all sounds good, except it's all bullshit.
It's not like Stan.
He's got enough money for all of it.
He didn't go into his piggy bank and shell out $1 billion in cash for the stadium. Fans are convinced that he's literally paying with his own capital. That's not how it works.
No, but you do use your products as equity, right? So so the bank comes in and says, if this falls flat, what are you going to sell? He turns around and goes, well, there's this team in London. I don't know much about them, but they're worth this much. That's what I'll sell.
I apparently own them.
All right with them.
Yeah, that's what I'll sell if shit hits the fan and I need to pay you back.
When was the last time an NFL team folded?
Exactly, but that's
who the hell thinks that's going to happen?
Yeah. That's the only reason Arsenal is even affected by this is because he's got equity that he's used us as that, and that's it.
Yeah, but that's how the business world works.
Totally.
You use your assets to get more assets.
Yeah, but as far as we know, he's not pulling money out of. I mean, he's not.
No.
Again, I don't understand this very much, but
not as far as we know. We know for a fact he's not pulling money out to pay for the Rams because they publish their accounts every year.
Right.
We see it. Every dollar is accounted for. I know people like to pretend like there's some funny money backhand second account, where they keep all the secrets.
Yeah, but that's highly illegal, and that's how you go to prison.
That's how
exactly.
they take Ozil.
As if they don't operate under business codes and ethics in England. Like,
well, I don't know what people.
Right. There's a sense in our fan base where it's literally like the reaction comes like, "Oh shit, this is brand new," and it's the biggest overreaction too. Like, is Sven Mislintat no longer with the club because it appears that he quit a week ago? Yet, like, there's been no official statement, has there?
I think they said he's leaving, but not yet.
They didn't
left.
say when. It could easily be he's leaving in the summer for all we know because they didn't.
Yeah.
He's leaving in the summer of 2028.
Let's hope.
So the communication thing's a bit of a problem. I do want to give a quick shout out to James McNicholas, Gunner Blog, tweeted out an open letter. He's like you gentlemen, good with words. The open letter was to Josh Kroenke about the lack of communication, not necessarily telegraphing your transfer policy, but just showing you're invested. No, not financially, but in every other way. You should go online, take a look at it if you've seen. But Andy, you live how far away from Kroenke headquarters?
I literally walked past it yesterday when I was at the Avs game.
Is it not time we start blaming you for not doing more? I mean, did you not move directly?
That guy.
Forget about Milwaukee. Did you not move from Hemel Hempstead to Denver just for this?
I do wonder, and I thought this yesterday when I was at the game. I wonder if anything KSE related in Denver affects or even communicates with the Arsenal.
Is there just a firewall between the two?
You know what I mean? Because there's no, like, the reason that the KSE headquarters is essentially in the Pepsi Center is because all their teams play there, so it makes sense to have your staff there. But I'm not sure there'd be one person on staff aside from Josh and maybe his little peons that even relates to Arsenal in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, Arsenal's a pretty self-contained business. They don't really need KSE to do anything for them.
No,
but
maybe they utilize resources, but that's got to be it.
Yeah, could be.
They're not even bringing them to Denver to play an exhibition game this summer, apparently.
Which is absolutely ridiculous, because when you drive to the Colorado Rapids Stadium, like, on the lamppost, one side is a Rapids flag, on the other side is the Arsenal crest. And then that's because you put it there. They removed it last year, but there used to be a big cannon with the Arsenal flag in the corner, and when the Rapids scored, they would fire the cannon. And I don't know if they did an expansion where they just removed it. I also haven't been to a game for a season and a half, but there's just such relationships here. Like, I think 90 people went to the pub this weekend. The local pub here, the Arsenal pub, just closed down, and so people were just like going all over the place. And so one place had 90, and I think a couple other pubs had a few tens of whatever. But there's a huge there's a huge fan base here, and that's just the weird part about it. There's been that relationship since '96, and he won't bring the team here. It's just ridiculous. It's because he probably doesn't know we do a preseason tour. Like, he literally has no idea.
Until
he also doesn't know he owns the Colorado Rapids. Like, that's the other thing.
Until 2 years from now, when Arsenal play in the new Kroenke Stadium, and Kroenke charges Arsenal $5 to 10 million pounds for playing there.
Or Mike,
probably
does he pay us $500 million for playing? Hey!
Let's get to some music questions, because
Can I give you a quick hot take about Kroenke real quick though?
Yes, please do.
I don't care if he cares. I don't care. He has a team of executives that handles the financials, right? He has a team of executives that handles the football player recruitment. He has a team of executives that handle contracts. The club is run by people that know how to run a football club. I don't care that, yes, he's the owner, and I know it makes sense to say, you're the owner, you should be invested, and you should show that dedication from the top. But effectively, it does not matter to Arsenal one bit whether he cares or not, because he doesn't do anything he doesn't know anything, and he knows that he doesn't know anything, and he hired people that do know what they're doing to do what they're doing. So,
but again, that's normal business practice. There are very few CEOs that have a very hands-on approach with their businesses. They put people in power to handle this thing, and then they come with them every month, once every 6 months with reports. And here's where we're at. Here's where we can be. Here's where we fucked up. And then they solve it. And then that's it. And then he goes back wherever.
That is true, but that ignores the exact cultural element that I think pisses off so many fans, specifically English supporters, who, to where I think there is a cultural tribal element. I'm maybe speaking out of turn because I'm not English, but where you want to have them not necessarily be one of your own, but to care. I mean, the one thing I think about Mike Ashley that and again, I may be speaking completely over my head, but he goes to games. He shows interest.
But they absolutely, if they could burn him at the stake, they'd burn him at the stake at St. Park. They despise the man.
I know that, and Oyston or whatever his name was for Blackpool. They want him out, but he goes to games. I mean, there's this. So maybe I'm contradicting myself in the sense Abramovich goes to every game and has sweaty pits and stuff, and it's just, do you want to at least see the manager, the owner of the team or the chairman of the team at the game like Daniel Levy every week?
But I don't think so, because I would want that from an owner. But if the owner cared, I would want that. If your owner doesn't care, why do you want him there just for parity's sake? Yeah. No, if you don't care, don't waste your time. The people that care are at the ground. You're doing your thing. As long as the club is being well run, that's what should matter, at least to me.
And then we just have to identify who is the figurehead of caring. Then
I would assume it's Raul. It seems like Raul is the de facto head of the club, and then he answers to Josh, and then Josh reports to Stan. That seems to be the structure.
See, I don't even see the Kroenkes as being like the CEO or the CFO or anything like that.
No,
I see them more as being like they're the family members. They're the family members, exactly, whose name is on the building, and they're like fourth generation, so they have a say. But they don't really have a say in running things. You know what I mean?
People have to ultimately everything we're saying is this club is now run as a business.
Yes.
And when you're in the line of being in sports and you own multiple sports teams, you're not going to be able to attend every event. Where do you think the Kroenkes were today? Every one of them was in LA, right? Does Josh know that the Avs and the Nuggets played last night? Yes, he does. Does he know the score? Yes, he does. Right? But at the day-to-day stuff, as everyone I just want to reiterate the point. It's as long as there's someone who cares, that's all that matters. And we have those people in place. And when shit hits the fan, they'll go to the Kroenkes and go, "Hey, this is what's about to happen. Hey, James Rodriguez is available for $60 million. We have $60 million. We need you to pull the trigger on this. Is he going to better our team? Yeah, then pull the trigger. Where have we seen Kroenke so far say, I'm not going to give you anything. I'm not going to approve anything. We haven't.
Never.
If that was the case, we wouldn't have gotten Aubameyang.
We wouldn't. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Their stance is if you can do it and you can do it under the rules, then do it. And that's what else could you ask for? Sort of, cheating and them handing you money like it's an allowance.
Well, the caveat is that we have to remain sustainable because they don't want to have to financially bail us out because they have other financial interests, and that then puts issues into their portfolio overall because of what we discussed before, that the club, whether we like it or not, is going to be leveraged time and time again because of how financially solvent Arsenal is. It's so strong financially that they're going to be able to say, well, I have this cash cow. If shit hits the fan, I can guarantee X amount of dollars because Arsenal will make X amount of dollars this year, and here are our books to show it. That's just the nature of it. But there's nothing wrong with a sustainable model, and Nate and you and I know that because of how Dortmund is run, or a lot of other big football clubs are run sustainably. Even Bayern Munich are run sustainably. I despise them, but even they're very well run. They just spend more because they make more money than Dortmund.
And they've never what's their record transfer fee? $45 million?
For one player, I do believe they never splash out like 60, 70, 80, 90 million per player.
They'll spend a healthy chunk, but it's not like,
Yeah.
Well,
that was weird.
At the end of the day, it just goes 15 years ago, if you would have walked up to random people when the Emirates first opened and said, point to our owner's box and tell me who exactly that person is, half the people would be like, I have no fucking clue.
Yeah.
The only reason that the Kroenkes are now so hated is because they are 100% owners. and they are the only figureheads really.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just we always need to blame someone as Arsenal supporters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's going to be them. And unfortunately, there's just so many popular, misguided people on Twitter who have a voice that speak to all these little masses. That
including one that Andrew agreed with earlier.
Don't fuck up our friendship with him just because you don't like him.
Hey,
I didn't say that.
There are people we love and there are people we hate, and everyone can disagree. But at the end of the day, they're just. I do wish Arsenal would come out and have some sort of a statement. I would love if Josh got a Twitter account, even if his publicist ran it, and they just fucking said that's not true. You know, whatever.
Or just tweet that you care and you're aware of like I don't know. There's got to be something.
But Mike, that doesn't matter. You want to know why? Because Ozil Instagrams and tweets that he cares, and he still gets stabbed in the back every week by our fan base. So it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of getting stabbed in the back, Drew has to leave pretty soon, so let's get to some user questions.
My God, man, you're relentless today. Next time I see you, I'm going to throw you into traffic.
Hey, it's late here too, Andrew. It's late here too. All right.
Yeah, this is your fault.
I tease people proportionally to how much I love them, so take it as a badge of honor. All right, so let's try to skip to the ones that have Drew. Andy, you got one from Mike Hernandez.
Yes, pick one each, Drew and Nate, from these three questions. Okay. Actually, I'm just going to assign you a question.
It's easier that way.
You don't like the game?
Sorry, Mike. Drew.
Yeah.
Has Unai used 3-4-3 because our squad doesn't have any natural wingers? He relies on our wing backs for width.
I think so, yeah, because if you look back at his Sevilla days, he used the 4-2-3-1, and he had width in that formation. And if you just feel like he just doesn't think that Mkhitaryan when he was fit and Iwobi are the type of wingers he wants, then he would look elsewhere where you have Kolasinac and Bellerin who are very good going forward and they can give you that width. So yeah, I think so.
And then he had a specific question for you. Has Socrates' level been above or below what you've expected?
I'm sure Nate's grinning on the inside.
I'm grinning on the outside too, Andrew.
Fair. I think he's been actually about what I expect. Like I said, he 1v1, he's a good defender. He does have good recovery pace, so it does mask some mistakes he will make. He's not a poor defender. It's the fact that A, he has been in decline, and that's without dispute. And then B, for me, I just feel like we could have done better because he just comes across as such a short-term solution for us for a long-term problem. And I think for me, if you're going to spend 17 million pounds on Socrates, why didn't you spend 25 million pounds on Abdou Diallo? You know what I mean? That is an example. For me, just the business angle of it didn't make as much sense. He does give you enough that you want, but he doesn't make us better, and you can see that because look at our defensive record this year. He's played every single league match this year now, except maybe one, and our defense is still an absolute shambles. So he was never going to make us any better.
The thing I would add to what Andrew just said is that he does the physical defending side of defending very well, but he's never really over his career shown evidence that he's a great organizer of a back line. And like he leads by example, and his energy, like yesterday you saw him celebrate after he made that tackle, and it was great. And, that definitely lifts the team up. But in terms of, when you're dropping back into shape, he's just not he's not an elite communicator, and it's kind of similar with Dortmund. They got younger this year and less experienced, but their level increased because they just played better together. So he's just one of those players that what you see is very, very good, but it doesn't all add up to being more when you feel like it should, if that makes sense.
It does. Drew, I just want to tell you something real fast. I just opened a chat room that Mike and I are in, and Rob Ford sent a picture of Mike as the dude we were discussing earlier from Silence of the Lambs.
Well, that's a Sebi masterpiece that he tweeted into a different group that we're in.
But it's just coincidence. And I love it. I'm also just finding out now that Mike's in a group with Sebi and some of my other friends, so someone can remove that knife from my back.
I'm not in the group. Our Twitter handle's in the group. If you ever fucking check your DMs, you can actually pretend you're me. No one's keeping you out of that shit.
Mike Hernandez had his third question was, can Ozil replace Ramsey in the diamond formation?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely he can. maybe not give you the same sort of press, but in terms of knitting together, I mean, that trio behind him is enough defensive stability, I think, especially if you're going to get that kind of defensive performance out of Aubameyang, where he's tracking back, sometimes all the way down to the left back. But I think without question, it's his best position. It gives him support in behind. It gives him two outlets in front of him, and he can still have the fullbacks overlapping on the outside. I think absolutely he could slot into the 4-4-2 diamond.
One more quick question for Drew, and then we'll let you go. Drew,
all right.
We're not letting Nate go, but we'll let you go.
You can keep him all you want. It's his first time.
Okay. This one's from Rufus in Virginia. Also for Drew. Hopefully you're old enough to remember the classic Richard Pryor movie, Brewster's Millions.
Vaguely,
anyone remember?
I could say something here, but I won't.
Okay. Well,
why do you keep referencing movies from when Drew and I were like fetuses?
I don't know.
Feti.
All right. So here's a brief recap. The plot is that dude inherits an absurd amount of money. But he only gets to keep it if he finds a way to spend $30 million in 1 month without actually having anything to show for it at the end of the month.
Okay.
So this questioner is thinking of making a movie called Ozil's Millions, where a sensitive and mercurial footballer finds himself having to figure out how to spend an absurd sum of £350,000 a week. Did you know he made that much money?
I did.
I didn't.
For 4 years. So my question is, will you
somebody
agree?
Write these things down.
Will you agree to star in the film as a freckled Richard Pryor? That's the question.
I gotta say, I'm borderline offended, but I'm not.
Borderline. I like tiptoeing right up to
play Richard Pryor. You can't be that offended.
Because that's actually pretty funny. So whoever said that, well done. Yeah, sure.
Rufus.
I will gladly play Richard Pryor, although I'm not nearly as funny as Richard Pryor was.
That was Rufus in Virginia that asked that question.
But thanks, Rufus in Virginia.
Major props to
He doesn't want to be typecasted.
I sure don't.
Except the joke that he made before we came on the air that we can't make when we're on the air about tomorrow. All right, well, Drew, we're done with you. We don't need you anymore because you clearly don't need us anymore.
Plans.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for staying, dealing with the delays of the NFL. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Enjoy tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
We'll have you. All I mean is enjoy your day off of school.
Okay.
As a teacher, not as a student.
Wait, you get tomorrow off, Drew?
Yeah.
And you need to go now?
Yeah, I have plans, man.
He just wants to leave.
No, because I have it off tomorrow. I have plans.
I see. All right.
So your plans start at 11?
They weren't supposed to
start at 10, but
You're planning on being out of here in 30 minutes, Drew? It's your fault.
Originally it was 9 o'clock. Then we pushed it to 9:30 plus maybe a few minutes, quote unquote.
Hey, look, the refs wanted overtime, so the refs got overtime. Okay?
The NFL wanted overtime. The NFL got it. So.
The NFL gets what it wants. That's for sure.
The NFL
just like they wanted,
they
wanted a franchise in LA, and they said, "Hey, who's a guy that everyone already hates anyway?" Hey,
yeah.
But thanks for having me for sure, guys. It was fun as always.
Take it easy. Enjoyed both of your podcasts today.
Thanks, bro. See you guys later.
All right.
Andrew.
Couple more questions. Sorry, Mike. We didn't get to ask Drew if he's going to Gooners, but I'm almost positive he's not. Because if he went to Gooners, people would actually see what he looks like, which they'd be very impressed with. But anyway. Question from Rob Ford, who also cheated on me with other friends on Saturday. Went to the different pub, which it's going to take some recovering from. Being a fellow Wizards fan, do you foresee more London games for the Washington Wizards? And if so, how many beers should we drink before going to the O2 Arena? I'm sure if you follow Arsenal players on Instagram or Twitter, you saw that they were enjoying and taking in the finest the NBA have to offer, the Knicks and the Wizards. What was the NBA thinking by scheduling that game?
Did you see the video with Ainsley going to visit the Wizards? And oh my God, it's like, oh, you're pretty great, bruv. Looks him up on his phone, like.
And one of our friends who does play-by-play for the Wizards and DC United was actually in the room. You can see him in the background of that whole Ainsley, like the Maheen Me presentation with the half the squad was there. There's a great picture of Aubameyang and Lacazette, I believe, sitting next to Bellerin and just staring at his clothes. Herm Mertesacker was there, which was very, very cool. As long as the youth academy wasn't like literally playing Tottenham in the FA Youth Cup at the same exact time.
Oh, you too.
I do. Look, I like to make mountains out of molehills, but I like to smash them when I don't think that it's valid. But he could have been.
What's the age range of Hale End Academy? What's the age range of at Hale End? Isn't it up to U7? Is U17, right? U18?
Oh, so is it the case that this wasn't at any way, shape, or form anything that he was in charge of?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
If that's the case, I will eat crow then. I will eat crow. And Lee Judges, you better eat crow too, because you're the number one poster boy for being mad at this.
Yeah.
Anyway, the answer to his question, though, is, Rob, that you know exactly how many beers it takes because you've seen me do it. It's 49. If you're going to watch Wizards, that's what you have to do. Question from was another question just for me to answer, which I don't want to monopolize things. So go to the comment in the last comment from Unai FC. Andy, you got that one?
Yeah. So he says, and I think it reflects on what we were saying earlier, but somehow I don't hate Kroenke. I have a weird feeling that he's going to make this club very successful in the near future. That is a very weird feeling. Us not spending properly wasn't his fault. We bought so many crap players in the past regime and made so many mistakes. And Nate, while you kind of chew on that, I just want to say, from my personal, and I shared this last week, there is fault with the Kroenkes for that, for not knowing the transfer market, for not having a deeper understanding of the wage structure of the packet, who we had on our squad versus who we were bringing in. Therein lies.
Chicken's done.
No, he said packet. That gets a bill.
Therein lies the fault of the Kroenkes, is just not knowing that information. Granted, there were people that were supposed to know that information for them, but it's just part and parcel of being an owner, is understanding a little bit of, hey, we're going to sign Mbappe and he wants worth of wages. Awesome. That sounds about accurate. Hey, we're going to re-sign Danny Welbeck to 150. Okay, that doesn't seem as accurate as before. So just understanding and knowing when the sheets come over financially that you can read and see what's going on. So had they had a better understanding of the in and outs and ongoings of the market in general, I think we would be in a better spot. But that being said, they entrusted it to other people. Nate, thoughts?
Well, I admire his optimism, and I don't disagree. Well, I don't think they're going to be the ones that lead us into becoming a good club. I think we might become, a more stable, bigger, better, more successful club in spite of their ownership. But, it's hard to say. So, yeah, hindsight's one thing, right? But if you look back at the last couple of years with us dropping down to the Europa League, and that's obviously a massive revenue hit. But if you drop down to the Europa League, then you want to improve so that you get back into the Champions League. So we kind of tried to straddle that line of being efficient with our money, but spending to improve, and as we did with Aubameyang, Mkhitaryan. And in order for you to do that and for it to work, you really have to hit 100% of the time. And I think for the most part those moves have worked out, but they didn't really have the desired effect, and that kind of left us with this hefty bill to pay at the end of the line, and without that payoff of the Champions League to kind of make it all okay again, So it's a tough situation, and yeah, I mean, you got to point the finger at Wenger and at Gazidis, because they were responsible for the wage bill getting to where it is in many ways, but at the same time, it's pretty easy to understand why they did it like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely it does.
Absolutely. Now, Nate, before we wrap up, Drew's just tweeted a nice tweet that
good.
About coming on the podcast, that you've been upgraded from just words on a Twitter screen now And speaking of which, Quentin Whitfield earlier in the chat said that your voice is very different to the one that he's been using to read your tweets. I don't know Quentin. I don't know Quentin that well. He's a new name that I'm seeing in the chat. So first of all, thank you for joining us.
I can't imagine that's a good thing.
Secondly, that's hilarious, and you need to tweet and add us in the tweet. You need to tweet. You can either be audio or video. The voice that you thought he had. I need to hear what this was.
Me too.
Was it creepy? Was it? I mean, we just got to know.
Definitely.
Thank you. Creepy. Thank you for that, Quentin. I'm going to give you the most massive Martin Luther King Day birthday present today, Andy, and I'm not going to read Chris Carpenter's question on the podcast. I will answer it on Twitter. Chris asked a WWE related question having to do with our defense, and I don't want to break up permanently with you, Andy, so I will keep that off the podcast. Which
Why
means
did you change his Twitter name? I was just tweeting how much fun it's been to have everyone on, and then I was like, "What the fuck is his new name?"
Yeah, it's this new project he's working on with Football Manager, so he's going even more incognito now.
You're talking about Andrew?
Yeah, that's another question. Rufus in Virginia would like to know why you call him Andrew and everyone else calls him Drew.
Because that's just that's just what I call him.
Oh, there's
that's
personal history and
no, that's just what I called him from the beginning, and he never corrected me, so I keep doing it until he tells me to stop. Pretty much. Kind
of like how there's two people in the world that call me Michael, and they both do it when they're mad at me, and it's my mother and Andy. So that's how you know.
I knew that was coming. I just assumed you said Steph and then me.
No, it's my mom, Michael, and you. So that's about it. I will. Chris's question. I'll read the question, but not the answer. Chris's question was: Hector's injury is the latest in a long line of defensive injuries. So, given the new look shithousery defenders we're going for, give me your new back four signed only from WWE. So we'll have a kind of a what's it called when you suspense? You keep the suspense. We'll have a cliffhanger here, and I'll answer it on Twitter. But thanks for the question, Chris. It's good to see you back on our airwaves maybe soon. Good old buddy of Drew. And that's about it. So subscribe on YouTube, please. Any moment now you should see a subscribe link if you're not already subscribed over here. We tweet out a link to subscribe. Please share it. We're going on a membership drive for our YouTube viewership, usership. And thank you for those of you that showed up in the chat tonight. Thanks for giving us a thumbs up if you have. If you haven't, please do that. And if you're listening to us on iTunes and you want to see what all this crap looks like in person, you can watch us on YouTube next time.
Why don't you have a picture up behind you?
You just won't see Drew. You won't see Drew. You'll see an A pulsate.
Yes, we'll see a big A. Big A. And he's a big D. So anyway.
I'll leave that alone.
Did you ask why I don't have I said has, not is. The picture behind me, I didn't have time. I was watching the football game. So next week, we have some new ones to debut, though.
To blame Nate again.
What?
So Nate's the fault of this because his team was playing.
Yeah, it's very the suspense that.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah, people who watch the pod know that one of the most exciting things is the reveal of who will be over my shoulder when the pod starts. And this week, I just had to turn everybody down. But I got some new ones, and you're not going to like it, Andy. So.
You know what, Mike? Bring whatever you need to bring because there's a picture of you on a dolphin I would love to do something with. So
yeah, I'm sure you would love to do something with a picture of me on a dolphin. But you keep that to yourself. All right, Nate, thanks for joining us. I'm sure
Thank you for having me.
But it's been fun. Where can we find you on Twitter and 94 different writing?
At NWS13 on Twitter, youaremyarsenal.com, ectaliba.com, .co.uk, I think that one is. And Ronnie Dog Media is kind of the parent company of all of those sites. So check us all out.
Is that how the conglomerate works?
Yes.
Does Ronnie Dog Media's owner ever go to the different blogs and show up and show that he cares or she cares?
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
Okay.
He definitely cares. He doesn't show up physically, but he makes sure that we know he cares mentally.
So he's
by
got one on.
telling
got one
us
on
to
already then.
do better.
All right.
Just kidding.
Have a good one. Thank
Yeah,
you for
you
joining
too.
us.
Thanks for
And
having me,
Yeah,
guys.
thanks a lot. Appreciate it, man.
Come on, you.
Yeah, no
Come on, you.